I've been seeing a lot of Swedish propaganda in my feed as of late, and I'm not too fond of it. These Sweeboos will have you believe that Sweden is a civilized place with high living standards comparable to the higher echelons of modern society. I'm here to tell you the rhetoric you've been fed is nothing but lies. The Swedish are nothing more than simple-headed and uncultured Jacobian apes which should be purged from this earth. Swedish culture is often held up by other Western nations as a fair and multicultural society with high living standards, and the people are believed to be kind and well-intentioned. Reality could not be further from the truth in this instance. Comparing Sweden to its other Scandinavian counterparts, what advantages does it have? Danes are Jacobian devils of the simplest form, that does need to be mentioned, yet they're very funny people, and they make good beer. Norwegians have their oil, their fjords, and their fisheries. What does Sweden have? Surströmming. The most vile, pungent food in the world. And contrary to what some Swedes might tell you, it's something they all eat and enjoy. The Danish have red sausages, the Norwegians brown cheese, the Swedes rotten fish in a tin. How could anyone hold such uncivilized people up to the standards of Western European society? I mean, my dog wouldn't eat this shit. Flies shrivel up and die at the mere stench of such a foul and repugnant affront to God, which the Swedes all regard as a tasty, delectable dish. Also, the idea that the Swedes are somehow beautiful is just a blatant display of media coercion. Are we seriously going to delude ourselves into believing in such blatant falsehoods? Swedish men are much like the British, twinks until the age of 25 when they become some creature which wouldn't look out of place as an evil creature in some fantasy book. Actual fantasy orcs meet higher beauty standards when compared to these so-called people. Meanwhile, Swedish women are all plastic dolls which age at the grace of leather. And what other cultural achievements can the Swedes boast of? Crappy cardboard furniture? Minecraft? I mean, it's clearly just a Fortress Craft clone. They did make Emil, who is literally me. And then of course there's the big one, Volvo. Volvo was on a hot streak during the 70s and have made some of my favorite cars. Speaking of Volvo, however, at the same time as Volvo was at its peak, Norway went through significant economic transition due to the discovery of numerous oil reserves found within its shores. Norway, unlike pretty much every other nation, when presented with such an opportunity, did not simply sell it off to foreign companies, although the idea was floated in Parliament. Luckily, our natural party of governance is actually competent. So we nationalized most of the oil, setting up a government corporation to harvest said oil reserves with the help of foreign companies. A decision which has made the Norwegian people extravagantly wealthy. Now, Norway actually offered to let Sweden in on this opportunity, allowing the Swedes significant rights within the Norwegian offshore oil fields in exchange for a mere 40% of Volvo. Now, the Swedes, in their hubris, decided not to take the deal, as negotiating with these illiterate Norwegian farmers was beneath them. Yeah, how did that work out for you, huh? In large part due to oil, Norway mogs Sweden in GDP per capita. And whatever happened to the precious Volvo, you might ask? Volvo is Chinese now. The Swedish government doesn't own a single share of Volvo. The glorious workers' utopia of China wins yet again, owning approximately 78% of Volvo. Sweden can only watch silently from their cuck chair as China f***s their bitch way better than they ever could. Now, perhaps this blunder could be further explained by going through some more of our shared history. Norway, Sweden, and Denmark share significant cultural ties due to their close proximity. In 1397, due to the devastation caused by the Black Plague,
look at how his body is bent up like a pretzel,
and those ever-meddling Germans, the three Scandinavian countries, and Finland, united under one monarch, something called the Kalmar Union. The Kalmar Union dissolved approximately 100 years later when Sweden decided to fuck off. However, Norway was still property of the Danish monarchy and continued under Danish rule until the Napoleonic Wars, because, as was common for royals at the time, the Danish monarch was an inbred retard and decided it was a perfectly reasonable idea to join the war on Napoleon's side. Now, who was Napoleon at war with? Well,
the world!
As a consequence of this, the victorious powers took away Denmark's most important colony, that being Norway, and considering Sweden's help in the war effort, Norway was handed off to them. Now, Norway never really had a problem with Danish rule, and never really protested foreign control. However, as soon as the Swedish took over, things took a shift. The Norwegians initially wanted the Danes to return, viewing it as far superior to Swedish rule. However, this occurred during the rise of nationalistic movements around the globe. Therefore, Norway sought independence instead. In 1814, they declared a war for independence. And yeah, we lost pretty badly. However, we did get to keep our parliament. Due to this, succession from the Swedish occurred in 1905, making Norway a truly independent nation. Also, when deciding on a monarch to be head of state, we chose a Danish prince simply to spite the Swedes. Sweden is commonly used as an example by other nations for the dangers of immigration, as Sweden has had a pretty open border policy regarding immigration. Many of you would imagine that I would view this as a negative, yet another way to score points against the Swedes. However, I think it's about time someone comes to teach the Swedes some culture. They're replacing your culture, you say. What culture? They're replacing you, you say. Good. Such a degenerate life force, such as your own, does not have the right to exist. The mere existence of you people makes me pray that the Great Replacement Theory is real. Say what you will about migrants. I've never seen an Arab salivating over rotten fish. There's some more history which needs to be mentioned. Norway and Denmark both defended against the Nazi invasion. Norway gave a valiant effort in fending off the Germans, and after having their country conquered, still fought on the side of the Allies, being pivotal in halting the Germans' nuclear research. And after the war was won, we gave Quisling the Mussolini treatment. Now, what were the Swedes doing during this time? Selling iron ore to the Germans, whilst allowing them free movement across their rail networks. The Swedes aligned themselves with the Germans to save their own skin, and when the war looked hopeless for the Germans, they switched sides in typical rat behavior commonly displayed among the Swedes. In conclusion, Sweden is a degenerate society which does not deserve to live on past the 21st century, and anyone who tells you otherwise is government-controlled opposition. I did want to release this video on Sweden's national holiday, however, I've got a very busy life. Also, the date just passed me by because, I mean, who cares? What does Sweden even have to celebrate? Anyways, like, subscribe, follow my Twitch, give me money, and yeah.